we are going to talk about emotions and expressions. And so I've been looking at these previous webinars, and oftentimes, I like to just to mute the videos and then speed up the fast forward to like around 2 plus speed or wherever that's called. And one thing I've noticed too is about the different expressions that come about from you, my dad, or even from me as well. And yeah, I've been looking at these things, and I kind of just realized, about the certain eye movements that go around, or different ways of doing the hands, or different little gestures and whatnot.
You literally for years have been studying facial expressions, and I also find it fascinating, right, that even when you play back video, you play it back at 2 times speed, 3 times speed, 4 times speed, and you're able to pick up very small nuances even at those very quick speeds, simply because your autism allows you to do that. So tell me why you spent so much time studying expressions and really trying to find meaning and emotion. Why have you spent so much time doing that?
Actually, when I remember until one of our art teachers have passed away, I didn't really know what was going on or what that actually means when they, pass away, which means, sadly it's in death. And I see, kids around, they look, sad and sometimes even crying, even the teachers as well, as we gather around to the rock in the memorial. And I kind of just look around, and I didn't really quite understand or get or understand what is going on. And it's almost like I have no real emotion or no real expression. And that's when my parapro teachers, they kind of just explain what has been going on and why people are like that. I still didn't understand what that is, or what it's like to be sad or even happy on certain areas. So I was just trained to understand different facial expressions through illustrations, and I still have it on my refrigerator. The different faces that go around. Like today I feel okay. What do you feel? Do you feel worried or lonely, sad, happy, hysterical, all these different emotions that go on. And that's one thing that my parents, kind of did a lot with me is we just go through on what these different emotions are, and, remind them of what goes on in your minds, and, slide what you're feeling.
And then literally multiple times a day, we would take you through that so that you could identify what in fact you were thinking. And oftentimes in those situations that were high emotion, you also would have to be removed from those situations because maybe behavior was inappropriate or would cause a meltdown, which further complicated the problem. Because if you weren't able to work through that in that situation and be able to learn, then how would you be able to learn to even either deal with or identify that you were having those emotions? So how did you deal with that, with being removed from those situations so many different times?
So, I've mentioned this on previous webinars that I have been removed in many certain situations that almost felt very annoying in a way as well. And so annoying, in fact, that I feel like I have to be so cautious about what I do, what I say, what my expression is on certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
It's at times very scary, to go to school or even go to do whatever with my family, because I'm always afraid that I don't want to be pulled away from certain situations, so I have to feel very, very cautious on areas. And expressions is one of the major key reasons. It's like I don't really know, what the right expressions are for certain situations. It's especially when it came to anger as well. Anger was definitely one of my biggest emotions, back.
Yeah, and that is interesting too, because oftentimes, you would practice all of your facial expressions and such, but you would give wrong facial expressions in the situation that then would trigger. And so was that confusing for you when you were pulled away from situations? Like, were you like, well, man, what just happened? Or I don't understand, because I was smiling or laughing when everybody else was sad.
Yeah, it was very confusing because oftentimes, as silly as it sounds, I guess maybe I'm not really quite, aware of my own facial expressions or aware of my own
Right.
expressions, thinking that they're just faces. It's no big deal. But no, that's not true. They are a form of communication.
So how would you choose what facial expressions to use then? Or did you even really know how to make those facial expressions?
Looking at yourself in the mirror or
Yeah.
reflection. And I do remember, a lot of times it's, my family members, they say, stop looking at yourself at the mirror and all that kind of stuff, because that was not socially appropriate to do so in certain areas. But, the reason why, it's not because, I want to, make sure I look presentable or, look good, before I, take off, but also, to understand, what different expressions I should be using on certain areas. And the thing about this is that when I was at the state of sadness, I immediately go to the mirror to figure out what sadness looks like.
That does not come and did not come naturally for you at all. Like, it's still, you work on that to this day, is when you're feeling those emotions, what do you look like? What are the actual facial features? And then trying to either replicate those when you're in a situation of having to showing compassion for someone. So that term compassion, let's just talk a little bit about that. Do you understand the definition of compassion?
Compassion, I believe, is showing your respect and love towards others by helping them.
Yeah, it really is. That compassion or empathy is really about you being able to put yourself in the shoes of someone else. And I use that analogy, right? Not as you're putting shoes, but you know analogies now.
One of my analogies is switching eyes with other people.
Exactly. So that's exactly right. So it's not only switching eyes in the way somebody sees something, but it's also you being able to feel the way that they feel. Mm-hmm. So do you have the ability to do that, Tyler? To really, truly feel the way someone else feels?
Back then, as terrible as it sounds, but I never know what that was, or what people feel, that kind of stuff too. I know it sounds bizarre, but
no, not at all, love. I mean, that's true. It's very honest.
Yeah, it's I just didn't really know how to react when people are feeling angry or sad or sometimes even happy as well. And the thing is that sure, they make faces and kind of even doing heavy breathing, but I still wouldn't understand what goes on or what is happening and such. Sometimes even humor was really hard to figure out as well when people are laughing hysterically. It's like,
right.
Okay. It was so hard to figure out, why people think it's funny, why people laugh so hard, or why they find this sense of joy.
All of this is learned. You are trying to learn why things are funny and why people react emotionally. You're trying to learn why things are sad and why people react sadly to those things as well. Because none of that comes natural for you, hon. And that's not a bad thing at all. That's just who you are.
Want to go to the next part is illustrations of expressions. Mm-hmm. And why these expressions work. That's why a lot of times I'm always into the comic books or graphic novels or illustrations like that to read people's faces and then see like the words optional of why they feel this way through first person or third person or sometimes even second person.
These comics, the ones where they have these very vivid different kinds of expressions, and then the bubbles that explain what it is they're thinking or what it is that they're feeling, can actually be very, very helpful in developing emotions and understanding emotions and understanding facial expressions then as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just cartoons or illustrations, but also in real life people as well.
Yeah.
In photography, yeah, especially.
When you were younger and even in your adolescence, did you find that, even like when people got hurt, you didn't know how to feel? Or, in some cases when you're young, maybe somebody got hurt and your emotion was, it was funny. So did you find that happened a lot and that you were just not understanding or miscuing the emotion?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a jerk back then at times, to be honest. I'm very sorry to admit, but
Not intentionally by any means, love.
but PE, someone was blindfolded. I told him to keep walking, now run, and then he just runs into a wall. That's yeah,
That's not good, dude.
still haunts me to this very day. And
Yeah. And why do you think you did that? Why? Because it wasn't malicious, but why do you think you did that?
oh golly, do I have to go into that? It's because of a silly cartoon I watched, and I thought it'd be very funny in real life. And we worked really hard on knowing people's feelings for whatever you do.
And so there was literally decades of work on cause and effect, saying,
Cause
hey,
and effect.
meaning your actions, things that you do affect yourself and others, right? So there are consequences. So we talked a lot about there are consequences to your choices. That is when you make good choices, good things happen. And when you make bad choices, bad things happen. Either things are workable or they are not workable. And so you think about like a wheel that the spokes are missing, all of a sudden loses its workability. It loses integrity. And so you constantly have to be making those choices or maintaining your life so that your life remains workable. But if you make choices that are not workable, then your life gets out of balance. It doesn't work so well for you.
And I came to understand the meaning of the whole cause and effect technique, so much so that I decided to try to, challenge myself in knowing what happens before this happens or after this happens, and especially when it comes to emotions and expressions. That's what the one thing that I was most interested on in these certain areas.
Those were advanced techniques. I mean, those didn't really come to you until you were probably 18, 19, 20 years old, something like that. And so one of the big emotions that you were dealing with all up until that time, and even to this day, is anger. I mean, anger is a big deal. So tell us about that then, and tell us about anger now.
But like I said, even when I am happy, it's that's still same meaning and look on your face when it comes to that. It's like I'm happy when I'm angry and such. That was a thing that needs to be worked on for a very very long time, because there are many things that just happen all of a sudden, and I would just immediately switch to anger from 0.5 of a nanosecond.
Yeah.
It was that serious. It's that unexpected behavior, quite literally unexpected, because it comes out of nowhere. It's a surprise. So what do we do? Well, we worked on some strategies that worked just fine. One thing is that really worked is the punching bag. One thing that also happened was that I was actually joined to a boxing class at the gym, and just to try for a few moments before it kind of closes down, and that was surprisingly helpful when I get to go into that place to kind of just punch some bags, and also those little hand things that they do, and learn how to move your feet, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot to think about when it comes to boxing, and that was the one thing that really helped me calm down. Get rid of all that aggression, all that emotion and stuff, and it just ultimately makes me feel more relaxed after every single class. The other thing that worked really helpful was also this thing that's completely not boxing, which is or any fighting related material, and that's healing rhythms.
Hmm.
What is healing rhythms? Well, is it's a software on the computer where it has a little biosensor that you can plug into your three fingers, and what it does is it reads your vitals and reads how agitated you are, and think of ways to help you calm down the nervous system.
So basically, it measured your heart rate, your respiration, those kinds of things, which was great because you could really concentrate then on, because you had a visual representation of, like you say, these juggling balls, that your goal was to bring them down. And you knew physiologically that you had to bring your heart rate down, you had to become calmer in order to do that. So Healing Rhythms really was a great program for you. There's all sorts of other different biofeedback programs. What was another strategy that you used in order to deal with your anger?
One exercise that's really cool is the bow and arrow exercise. There's three targets: one up here, one in the middle, and one down below. Heart rate down a little bit, feeling more calm. Hit the lower targets, feeling somewhere in the middle. Hit the middle targets. If you're feeling a little agitated a little bit, you can hit the high targets. It's a little practice on how to control it entirely. So what is another thing that's helped me when it comes to anger? Well, for one thing, talking about it with my counselor, John Whitehead. The thing about him is that oftentimes I don't really quite feel entirely comfortable talking about emotions to my parents, and John, he's he's a counselor, he's a psychologist. He is able to listen and understand and come up with ways that helps you maintain and how to stay calm when it comes to emotions that go out of whack. And he mentioned that too, that it's okay to play with little toys or fidgets that help you maintain as well. Sometimes even today I like to play with the yo-yo. Sometimes even when I'm just walking around in the city, I would just still play with the yo-yo because I feel like it's kind of a neat, socially acceptable gadget that you can use when you're around. There's a lot of strategies when it comes to anger, and then oftentimes I've learned how to go from up here all the way down here in a split nanosecond.
Yeah, exactly. And those are strategies that you learned over time. Did social stories help you at all?
Social stories definitely worked quite a bit because it's always so basic when it comes to social stories. All right, you got the feeling of the emotions. Okay, you're sad or you're happy, and then there's also times where you go saying, hey, it's okay to get that sometimes. And then after that, you would also go down to what you can do while you're feeling this way. So here's an example of Arnold who is angry, and it's okay to get angry because everyone gets angry sometimes. But at the same time, you must know, hey, there are ways to bring down the anger to more of a minimum or somewhere in the middle level. And we've mentioned this through the engine. Bring the engine down. If it's overheated, then you're in trouble. So one thing that we work on is take some deep breaths, because I mentioned this in the webinar before. Is that the deep breathing technique is very, very helpful in certain situations. Deep breath in, deep breath out. You close your eyes if you want to. You can also count to 10 as well, and ask for space. That's definitely that's definitely very helpful too, because even back then I just wanted my own space. I want people to leave me alone on certain areas as well. You just need some extra time. Even my parapros know that you need some extra space. And taking a walk is definitely a good way of doing it as well, when you're trying to bring your anger to a minimum, because you can see like the sunshine, the trees, and see whatever's going on. You can even hear the wind blowing, or hear the atmosphere, what is whatever's going on. And so yeah, we always want to work on and try to understand visually the visual emotions that go on, and how to bring the engine down to a minimum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So how did you deal with your sadness and ultimately led to depression?
Sadness back then, when I was back then, I didn't really quite understood what sadness was, and until I got my first actual tear because of something that happened, I kind of just fully understood what sadness really is. The example of this is my great grandma that passed. When I got the news, I heard from the telephone. Dad told me, saying great grandma Grace is not going to be here anytime soon anymore. That was one of the hardest lessons I have ever had to learn. Is that you can't help everyone, and I was so sad that I couldn't hardly even breathe. My sides were hurting. It's so many things that went on. Just sadness, anger, guilt, even worry. Feeling like there's someone to blame about this. And, because I was also at the state of anger, but at the same time, it was a sadness that just took over. I mean, sure, the memories and such, you can never forget your family members, but, you need to learn how to move on. And for me, that was the next step that happens, is learning how to move forward and how to take care of yourself. And they're not saying, hey, you can't be sad or you can't be angry and such too, because these are natural feelings. And throughout the years, I've learned how to make them more natural as time goes by, through example.
Those emotions are natural and they are normal, that you go through, and they still sting to this day, because that's the loss. It's the loss that we feel. But those people that care for us and love us also would want us to not be debilitated by that loss, but to actually be able to move forward too. So yeah, that's a tremendous amount of bravery that you had to share that, Tyler, because I know those emotions still to this day are very challenging for you. So I really want to acknowledge you for that. And I think that's amazing.
I just want to mention too that, that I had to learn, how and why emotions happen as well. One key example that I've learned that is through music. Music is definitely a very, very, very good tool in developing emotions. And with emotion comes expressions at times.
Do you still struggle with not having the right emotion, or not the right emotion? Your emotions are just what they are, but having the right expression to match the emotion currently, now to this day? And then what were some examples of that, of maybe times where you were, terrified, but you actually looked happy? Like to give us some examples of those mismatches that happened, and tell us why you think they happened.
The expression, how does that work with fear and such too?
Right. What does the expression fear look like? Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to doing that. I kind of just exaggerate and such, but that just makes me look silly, and such too. It doesn't really feel natural when I try to, match the right expression as well. But yeah, it's true. When it comes to emotions and expressions, so they can be sometimes the opposite, or sometimes generally confused. When it comes to areas, even if I'm happy, I may look angry, or even if I'm sad, I may look, happy or well as well, or anything like that. It's a whole idea of trying to see, how to develop expressions more naturally. And that's just and the main thing that we worked on primarily was mad, sad, and glad.
So because the vast majority of the time you would just look mad. You would look mad or angry or skeptical, at everything kind of in life. So would you say that was just your normal way of kind of looking, or was that something that you were always feeling?
It just felt very natural to me. I didn't really know if that counts as anger, to be honest with you. I didn't really know that there's like meanings between facial expressions. I just, felt relaxed in certain areas, and it felt good to give off that expression, with the muscles in your face, and generally like that. That's why usually, I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking out loud, but it's why my eyebrows are usually mostly down, on an everyday basis.
Socially, this becomes really difficult because for you, you're like, well, kind of just looking scowly and, that all the time. It's just feels good, right? From a STEM perspective, it feels good that way. But the way that it's perceived in the outer world, right? And then that becomes super confusing because you're just like, why is everybody reacting this way? And the reality of it is just like, no, this is just how I am, but it's difficult because of the way that it looks. And I know that was always really challenging for you.
Today, I'm so much better at providing them more expressions and, emotions as well. But at the same time, throughout my years of looking at different expressions, it's also kind of fun, seeing these different faces and how they can be used for communication without even saying anything.
Yeah.
As well.
You've worked unbelievably hard on emotions and expressions, and you still continue to this day, because I know it's these social nuances that are just very, very challenging. But give us your kind of key takeaways, your conclusion to this fascinating topic of emotions and expression.
The key takeaway to emotions and expressions is, I believe that emotions come first before expressions. Emotions are generally one of the most natural ways of developing expressions. Once you because if expressions come first, then you wouldn't really know why you were expressing that through facial expressions or sometimes even bodily examples too. You wouldn't understand why you are doing it. So there's always a reason why they're doing it. So that's why emotions always come first. Through daily training, daily examples of what emotions are, why emotions are here, and what you can do to show your emotions and how to control your emotions. I believe expressions can come extremely naturally in those areas. For me, it took years for it to fully develop and fully understand, and how expressions can be used in real life situations. And like I always say, every emotion is okay. It's okay to have these kind of feelings. And so when you're feeling sad or mad, feel free to talk about it, and they will and have them understand why you're feeling this way, and what we can do to work on making it workable for you to thrive and move forward. I think that's about it for emotions and expressions. I'm glad this turned out really good.
Sounds great. We'll look forward to the next webinar. Take care.
See you next time.